Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yes.
It's great to hear your voice, Dr. Shealy. I was chatting with Jason, our engineer, just before the broadcast, and I was asking him if he thought about the differences in races relating to health and so forth. And I mentioned to him that, I said, for example, my heritage is Italian on all four grandparents. And my dad, I remember my dad mentioning many years ago when I was very, very young, that Italians, people of Italian descent, have relatively strong teeth. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. But I was telling him that when I was first dating Mrs. Finelli, I said, so why are you interested in me? And she said, well, you have nice teeth and nice hands. And she didn't say, she didn't say, you're handsome and smart and none of that. So none of that went into the equation, or maybe very little of it did, if any of it were true. But so my question for you, Dr. Shealy, as someone who's seen thousands and thousands of patients, are there commonalities? And I'm not being racist. I'm just wondering if there's, legitimate, bona fide answers to, are there strengths? Do some nationalities have strengths? And do some have weaknesses in terms of their health?
Yes, I believe that is true. Now, I don't know the exact statistics of very many, background countries, but I think they're available. And, it's habits. I mean, basically, Italians in general are not fat, in my experience. And they eat the Mediterranean diet. That is known to be good for health and longevity.
Well, and that was one of the secondary questions. Does the Mediterranean diet have much to do with the general overall good health of those who are of Italian descent? So, for example, we're talking about fish. We're talking about oils in foods, olive oil. We're talking about green vegetables. We're talking about tomatoes. We're talking about cheeses. And so, that's part of the Italian diet, right?
Well, and even in Italy, they have the longest lived people in Azzaroli of anywhere in the world. It's a little place on the southwest edge of corner sort of Italy. And for some reason, they live longer than anyone else. They have, I think, 90% of people living into their 90s, etc., and the highest number living to be 100. And when they published this, they thought it was because they ate lots of rosemary, but everybody in Italy eats lots of rosemary.
Yeah.
So I think it may be topography as well.
Okay. And so I was thinking about vitamin D, and Italians get a lot of sun, for the most part. They're outside a lot.
And that is the number one deficiency in this country.
Mm-hmm. My mom back in the 1970s had a little Fiat, 2-seater convertible sports car. And, I remember someone, that she worked with at the college said to her, so how do you like it? How does it run? You know, this little Fiat. And she said, well, it's like all Italians. It likes warm weather.
I love it. She wasn't here.
and it was absolutely true. It had a Weber carburetor on it, and it really liked warm weather. And it was designed for Italy. It wasn't designed for the Alps. And, but ran fine in warm weather. So how does weather have, does that have an effect on health and longevity? So, for example, those who live when it's really freezing cold a lot of the time versus, let's go Maine versus Florida, assuming that the pollution is the same, et cetera. Does more sun affect longevity?
I don't know that. I'd have to look it up. I'm going to look up longevity in Iceland, for instance. Well, they have an average life expectancy of 81 for men and 84 for women. So it's 5 years longer than this country.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, then there's another question. So this has to do with automobiles. And I know for a fact, I've been on the racetrack and I've built race engines. And the reason I'm mentioning this, I was wondering if there is a correlation with people and machines. So, for example, I know for a fact that if I push the limits of an engine, if I give it more fuel and I give it more air to burn, if I force air into the combustion chamber under pressure, I can make more horsepower. But I'm going to burn that engine out, right after I cross the finish line, whether I cross first, second, or last. By pushing the limits of that engine, by working it really, really hard to its limits, I'm going to wear it out faster. Do we do the same thing with food? Are there foods that make us wear out faster?
Oh, yes. Sugar, white rice, potatoes, regular potatoes. Those are known for at least a century.
Well, okay.
I'm sorry?
All right, so sugar is white, typically. Cane sugar, beet sugar, that you'd buy in a bag. That's white. The rice is generally white after it's been, all the nutrients are removed from it. And potatoes, if you peel them, are generally white. Is there something to do with the color, Dr. Shealy?
Well, yes. The darker the color, up to purple, the healthier it is. And so orange, yellow, red, purple, etc., have more antioxidants.
Mm-hmm. My mom used to say, we're not going to eat white rice in our house when I was growing up. And she said, white rice is like brown rice, except they've removed all the nutrients from it. And they take those nutrients and they put them in vitamins. So you get to buy your vitamins separately from the rice, or we can just eat the rice. Now she wasn't saying completely stop taking vitamins, but she was trying to tell me that the nutrients are sold for a different purpose. And people have been conned into thinking that white rice is really great. But it's just bulk, isn't it? Just typically.
Yeah, it's been raped, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
White rice is junk. But remember, purple, there was, apparently is a purple rice, and it was reserved for the emperor of China, because somehow they knew that was stronger.
And isn't there something to the color purple that's reserved for royalty in their dress, for example, when they? No, I'm serious. I'm very serious.
It's considered spiritual, yes, as well as royal.
And when the Clintons stepped down, they wore like purple. She wore purple, and Bill Clinton wore purple. They were matched in purple. And that was sending a signal as they were stepping down and away. That was said, and I don't know exactly what the signal was, but that was a signal color, because they could have worn any other color, but they didn't. Okay. So they're
the least royal couple.
Well, there is some good news. There is some good news that with the Clinton family, Clinton syndicate, and that is there is just a little bit of rumble going on now toward what actually happened with the Clinton Foundation. What's it been doing? Where's the money been going? So it looks like there's going to be an investigation into that, and that'd be kind of nice to know where these donations have been spent, because I've talked to people who said, oh no, they are the most transparent organization. They with the millions and millions and millions that they raise and spend, I don't believe it. I believe that it's hidden, and I believe it's a personal account that they use for whatever they want. And I remember that when Bill Clinton left office, he left office in massive debt, and they were begging for money, like, please help us, because we owe so much money. Now their wealth is in the hundreds of millions. It's amazing how that works. So when you talk with your patients, Dr. Shealy, are you seeing any commonalities in their questions, in their concerns, that are different? Any different from, let's say, 20 years ago, 10 years ago? Has anything?
From a year ago.
Okay. And I don't mean to pry. I'm just, generally speaking.
No, I think the concern is the fraudademic, the fake-ademic, whatever you want to call the idiocy that's going on in the world. And honestly, I don't have a patient, if it comes up at all, who doesn't agree with our concept that this is a political shamble.
Oh, I absolutely agree. It's politically, it's being used politically. There's no question in my mind. And it is taking down businesses. Small businesses are paying a huge price. They're going under. And the big businesses are adapting and surviving. But the little businesses are not. So and we thought this was coming, Dr. Shealy. We thought, 30 years ago, actually, we thought in the 70s that ultimately, and we didn't know exactly how this was going to happen because it didn't seem likely that it could be easily accomplished. But we saw in our future that there would be very few outlets to buy things. So, for example, you might have a choice of 3 different, maybe 4 different stores, if you will, to buy whatever you wanted, because they would have it. And the little mom and pop businesses, they wouldn't be around. So you would get it from the big store. If you wanted clothing, it would come from, one of 4 places. If you wanted food, it would come from one of 4 places. No matter what you wanted, it was going to come from a select few that would survive through consolidation and destroying their competition. And here we are. We're getting close to it. Amazon is one. Walmart is another one. And there's some big food companies. And they're all scrambling to stay afloat and to become bigger. We'll be right back with Dr. Norm Shealy. Norm Shealy, medical doctor, normshealy.com. Plus, we're talking with Dr. Norm Shealy. Norm Shealy is a medical doctor, Surgeon of the Year, author of over 30 books, and has a practice in Springfield, Missouri. And if you'd like to find him, if you want to go to the internet, you can go to normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Norm, as in Norman, Shealy.com. And I'll give you the phone number a little later in the broadcast if you'd like to call him and set up an appointment. And Dr. Shealy offers the telephone consultations. He offers video conferences and consultations and in person. So that's in Springfield, Missouri, Central Time Zone. Dr. Shealy, we're talking about commonalities among ethnic heritages. And I mentioned what my dad said about teeth and Italians. And are there other commonalities or within ethnic backgrounds that you have observed, in your years of practice?
Well, yes. Let's face it, spirituality, one's religion, all of those things do influence us. And the more one is in tune with one's own, spiritual beliefs, the longer you live. It's a part of critical living. That's why I found it holism.
That's absolutely fascinating. So, are you saying that those who are more religious, regardless of what their religion is, have the possibility of living longer? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So atheists are on the bottom?
As far as I know.
Isn't that interesting? I have seen the power of prayer personally, several times. And I absolutely believe in the power of prayer. I don't believe it works instantly, but I have seen it work pretty darn close to instantly, in many occasions in my life when things were, when we were at death's door, literally. And I've seen it work in my family with my dad and one of our children. So I have seen that. And I felt that. And I have as I don't normally talk about this, but I was raised Roman Catholic, and my parents went to church, and of course, Vinny went to church with mom and dad. That's what happened. And why? Well, because my dad's parents were Roman Catholic, and they went to church, and they brought their children, and my mom's parents went to church, and they brought their children. So that's kind of the way it was. I'm not saying I'm a good Catholic. I certainly feel that I'm spiritual, but I don't go to church every Sunday. And so in that respect, yes, Dr. Shealy?
Here's one of the statistics. Mm-hmm. People who go to church regularly are 55% less likely to die during up to 18-year follow-up than people who don't.
So do you think it is the belief that when people go to church, one of the things I think they believe in is, and I don't think it's ever talked about, but I believe that they feel, generally speaking, that things can get better. Whatever they are, by believing and believing in God and so forth, that whatever the current state of affairs is, things can get better. I think that's true. Do you think that's part of it, Dr. Shealy?
Absolutely.
Positive thinking?
It is partly meditation, partly prayer, but in general, most religions do practice charity and humility and harmony. All of these are positive factors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, my mom was extremely spiritual. My mom would pray every day. She would get on her knees, even in her 90s. She would get on her knees on the hard floor and, at the side of the bed, and she would say her prayers. And it wasn't like a wham-bam kind of a thing. It was a long series of prayers. It might have taken 15 minutes. And she would bow her head, and she didn't make a big deal of it. She didn't say, hey, y'all, I'm going to pray now. Y'all leave me alone. She would just go off quietly and pray. And my mom lived by far the longest of her siblings. My dad lived probably the longest of his siblings. Very interesting. We'll be right back with Dr. Norm Shealy, medical doctor. And that number is 417-351-5221. Class, Dr. Norm Shealy's with us. NormShealy.com. Dr. Shealy, in the good old days, when we had expos and when I would travel to speaking engagements and teach in-person seminars, one of the seminars that I did was to teach people how they could prepare for what is coming and use tax deductions to do it. So what I'm saying is, people would say, well, I don't have any money to buy, that generator. And I'd say, well, sure you do. And so I would teach people how they could start their own business, any business that they possibly wanted. It could be making fishing lures. It could be recipes. It could be raising chickens. It could be anything that their heart desired. And they could save money by starting a business and use that savings to buy the things to prepare. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because it just made the bottom of the hour news that President Donald Trump didn't pay very much in taxes for years. And he did pay $700 according to the report for 1 year, but didn't pay much for other years. And I just want to tell you, class, that there's nothing special about that. Now, if you start your own business, you can do the same thing. And what I would tell the seminar class in person is I said you many times over and over, you can pay the same amount of taxes that President Donald Trump pays. Now, I didn't know exactly how much that was, but I assumed it was darn close to zero, because either he read the tax rules as I have, or the tax code, or he had people who read them, and he paid those people. And so I knew for a fact, well, I didn't know for a fact, but I was pretty darn sure that he didn't pay very much in taxes. And you don't have to if you have a business. And so if you look, you'll find out that he is in an enormous amount of debt, about $500 million worth of debt. And he has this feeling, and it's absolutely correct, that if you owe the bank a little bit of money, they'll come and get you. But if you owe the bank a lot of money, they're your friends, because they don't want to see you go under.
Common sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, common commodity. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, class, if you want to hear the strategies that I've talked about over the years, they're available on the internet. They're on YouTube. So you can type in USA Prepares and then followed by Extreme, EXTREME, tax deductions. Extreme tax deductions. And I did a series with Marty Barrett, and I taught her probably 7 or 8 classes, 1 hour each, on how to take the same tax deductions that I presume that Donald Trump and others, many others, have done. All you do is form a company, and then you buy things for the company, like a dog food. I'm not kidding. So I just wanted to share with the class that when Donald Trump is being beaten up for using the tax code and reading the tax code, you can't fault him for taking advantage of playing by the rules. If you play poker, you play by the rules, right? If you play baseball, you play by the rules. You're a fool if you don't. Any comments, Dr. Shealy?
Right on. I just looked it up, and I found immediately extreme tax deduction on YouTube with several different strategies, if you will.
Yeah, and basically, class, here's what I didn't want to digress, but I think it's kind of important, and you can do these things. So, for example, if you just have a job and you go to work and you get this, the payroll deductions like most people get, and you decide to buy a dog. Well, that dog comes out of your after-tax money. Okay, the taxes are already taken out by the federal and state and local governments. And then you buy your dog. Well, in my case, that's not the case. And I'm sure it's not the case for Donald Trump either. My dog is part of the business. It is. I need a security system. And that's my dog. And my other dog. And my other dog. And my other dog. And the cats, too. Well, it's absolutely true, Dr. Shealy.
I understand. I'm with you.
It's in the tax code, and all you have to do is read it and interpret it. And now the IRS is not going to interpret it for you. They'll only interpret it after they see you in an audit, and they'll say, "Wait a minute, what are you doing?" And then they'll say, "You can't do that," and you go, "No, yeah, actually you can, because here's what it says." And I've got a copy of it, and I've got my notes as to exactly why I did what I did. And let me give you one simple example. So we were around 1980. Let's see. No, it wasn't 1980. It was in the years that we were manufacturing computers. And so I built these computers, and I would build a prototype, and I'd put it on my desk, and I would use it. And I'd use it for a while to make sure I was happy with it. So before it was sold to the customers, we'll call it Model 1, for example. Before we sold Model 1, I would use it and make sure it had the performance, it was reliable, it was stable, in every respect, it had to meet my standards. And I would use it, and then after a while, let's say a couple months, I'd say, I think it's pretty good. And I would then make that Model 1 available to our customers. Well, after that, about almost 3 years later, we were audited by the feds, and they said, what about this computer tax deduction that you have here? You've expensed that. You can't do that, Mr. Finelli. You have to depreciate that over 5 years. And I said, no, you don't. And they said, no, the code says, and the guy pulled out his big, thick book, and he said, here's what the code says. I said, okay, well, here's what you said in publication 17. You can depreciate an income-producing asset over its economic life, useful economic life. And I said, this is a prototype, and we come out with a new computer, every 6 months. So the life expectancy for me of this computer is 6 months. That's why I expensed it rather than depreciated it over 5 years. They said, wow, no one's ever said that before. So what I'm telling you, class, is what you can do is read it and interpret it, and then you can fight it out later. And that's what we do. So that was my little piece on on Donald Trump being beaten up for tax deductions. Now, it's claimed that he spent $70,000 on haircuts. Now, that's going to be really hard to justify because my haircuts are $11. Men plus a tip, plus a 50% tip. But that's because I like, and I appreciate the gal who cuts my hair. So a 50% tip is really, is deserved, in my opinion, for an $11 haircut. I mean, seems like a bargain today, $11 for a haircut. But, I think he's going to have a tough time defending $70,000 worth of haircuts. No matter how you look at it. Dr. Shealy, any comments about that before we continue?
Well, I question anything that the mainline media has, so until I have seen the tax returns themselves, I wouldn't believe a thing that Times says or anybody else like that.
I agree with you. And when you say the Times, if you're meaning the New York Times, they used to say right on the masthead, all the news that's fit to print. Now people believe it's all the news that fits, we print. Yep. Completely different. Back to commonalities, Dr. Shealy. Are there other commonalities that you've seen that are ethnicity based? Like what, as I mentioned with my dad saying Italians, generally have strong teeth. Are there other? Yes,
there are. Physical activity. I mean, there's no question that people who exercise minimum of 5 days a week live a lot longer and healthier than people who sit all day.
Okay, so that's the use it or lose it, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Now, does that apply to the circulatory system, the respiration system, the bone structure, the joints? Does it apply to everything?
Every single part of the physical body, yes.
Mm-hmm. And is the reason, or what are the reasons why exercise will help you live longer? What does it do?
Well, it forces the heart and the muscles and the bones all to be active. In other words, if you sit all day, you don't push the bit. A little bit of push is essential. Now, there is a limit. I'm not sure that running a marathon once a week would be good, but the evidence is overwhelming that people who sit all day have the same risk as someone who smokes a couple of packs of cigarettes a day.
So back to a automotive type analogy. Sometimes people will get in, and this was the old days, I'm talking like in the 70s, maybe 60s, 70s. They get in their car and they warm it up and they hit the gas pedal, vroom, vroom, and they'd say, blowing out the carbon. And see this black soot come out. And literally they were. So they were exercising the vehicle a little more than they would normally. And you would see, these carbon deposits come out the exhaust pipe, as kind of a black smoke. Does exercise for the human body do the same thing, removing the carbon, in the analogy, through the pores and through the excretion. Is that what it does? It kind of pushes the limits and gets the toxins to leave the body through perspiration?
Sweating, I suspect that part of the detoxification you could do by soaking in a hot tub, a tub of hot water, because sweating is the best way to detox.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, can you sweat in the bathtub, or can you sweat in a whirlpool bath, or can you sweat in a hot tub?
Well, you sweat. I suspect you're sweating while you're there in the tub, but you sweat for up to half an hour after you get out as well.
Okay. And is there a concern? Let's say a person has a hot tub, and the water stays in the hot tub for a while. I don't have one, Dr. Shealy. How does the water get changed or purified, or what happens?
I think most people with a hot tub use some kind of thing like chlorine or ultraviolet light to keep it sterile. But of course, when you just do it in your bathtub, you let it out after every bath.
Right. And I was thinking about that. There's a television series that I really enjoyed, and I recommended it to our class. It's called Maverick. And Maverick is a Western with James Garner and Jack Kelly. And it was filmed in the late 50s. And there's a lot in there. I mean, there's a lot of lessons to be learned about people and human interaction. And having a bath was a big deal. You know, back in the 1800s, the late 1800s, going to a hotel and they bring buckets of hot water that was warmed downstairs up to the bathtub in the room, and having a bath would it's considered a real luxury because people didn't bathe as often back then because we didn't have there weren't showers, that's for sure, and bathtubs were kind of a primitive invention with drains, but the supply line with hot water just wasn't there. There wasn't pressurized hot water that we have today. So thinking about that, I was wondering, what effect has that had on our life expectancy? I'm just talking about plain old getting in the shower and using soap and scrubbing down, or getting in the bathtub. Can we talk about that when we come back? Has that been a major contributor to longer life expectancy of people in general, or is it not a big deal? We're talking about just hygiene and cleanliness. Dr. Shealy's with us, normshealy.com. So during the break, I was thinking, there's something that is hardly ever said. And here it is. Your doctor is in the office, ready to answer your call, and there's no charge. It's absolutely true, right here, right now. And Dr. Shealy has been doing this for about 30 years. Answering the phone, taking medical questions, providing expert guidance and consultation, absolutely free on the phone. And all you have to do is pick up that phone and dial. And we'll give you the number right now, 866-582-9933. Just finding a doctor in the office, is amazing today. Absolutely amazing. It's very hard to find a doctor who's in the office, and let alone one who'll talk to you on the phone and not charge you. I mean, it's like the trifecta, winning the trifecta, Dr. Shealy.
Well, it is interesting, but I looked it up, and people who take a hot bath, that is, soak in the bathtub, even for 5 to 10 minutes, live longer than people who don't do that on a regular basis. And taking a sauna for 5 to 20 minutes, even once to twice a week, increases longevity. So sweating, it's really the sweating, I think, that does it.
Okay. So, all right. Now, do you think that could be extended to a hot shower, Dr. Shealy, or do you think there is a distinction between bathing in a tub of hot water or warm water? I mean, I'm not talking about scalding anybody, but, warm water versus a warm shower. Do you think there is a difference there?
I think so, but I cannot find that unequivocal. But the difference is the hot shower doesn't warm your body as a whole the way soaking does. Because it doesn't cover all the body.
Right. Okay. And with a soak in the tub, Dr. Shealy, do you recommend any added ingredients besides water?
Yes, magnesium chloride.
Okay.
I put in about 4 or 5 handfuls of magnesium chloride into my soak, and I soak 15 to 20 minutes, at least 3 or 4 days a week.
Okay. All right. So bathing, warm water, magnesium chloride,
Much better
4 to
than
5.
magnesium sulfate.
Magnesium sulfate. Okay. That would be Epsom salts.
Chloride is much better than sulfate, yes.
Okay. So, all right. So for those who don't have magnesium chloride, would you recommend just Epsom salts as magnesium sulfate, right?
Well, it's half as good.
Okay. And now, when you say 4 to 5 hands full, would that be like 1 cup?
I expect that's about 2 cups.
2 cups. Okay. 2 cups in a typical tub. And how warm do you bring the water so that it's,
about 108 to 10 degrees.
That's pretty hot, right?
Well, I love it.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm trying to let our class know is that that's beyond warm, right?
That's not lukewarm, right?
Right. So that's close to maximum that the body can stand. Is that about right?
Exactly.
Okay. So be careful, class. Do not burn yourself. So you can measure the temperature. There are thermometers that can do it. And we have here at the farm, we use it for all kinds of purposes, but we have what's called a non-contact thermometer. Now this thing is like a, kind of a pistol grip, if you will, and it has a little trigger, and you point it at what you want to measure the temperature of. So, for example, if I want to know how hot a car is in the sun, just baking in the sun, I can just aim it at the roof. I can aim it at the doors. I can look at different colors and see if black actually gets hotter than white, and actually it does by a tremendous amount. And you can also aim it at the water. Now be careful, because some of them have a laser pointer that's turned on all the time. So you squeeze the trigger and this red laser comes out. You do not want to look at the reflection of the laser in the water, okay, because you can damage your eyes. So be careful with that. Never look at a laser. But you can, and they're available, these things are available on the internet. You can get them on eBay. You can get them at Harbor Freight Tools. And a lot of them have a feature that lets you toggle between Celsius and Fahrenheit. And it's a great little tool. So, I believe Dr. Shealy said 106 to 108. Is that right, Dr. Shealy? Degrees Fahrenheit? Okay. All right. And are there any other things that you have seen, commonalities with health, that we should know about? Good practices, such as
eating nuts every day.
Eating nuts.
Excellent, healthy food.
All right. Now, what about nuts that are in the shell? Well, I guess when we come, we've got about 40 seconds. In the shell versus out of the shell. So peanuts that have been salted and they're still in the shell versus peanuts that are already out of the shell and salted. Is there a difference in your world?
I'll have to look that one up.
Okay. Do you like them both?
Yes.
No, I do too. Okay, Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back. We'll be talking about nuts, the health benefits of nuts. I've got some questions about licorice. There's a guy that died. He ate too much licorice. And are all iodines the same? And is there a test for iodine by putting it on the skin? We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Shealy's with us, and a medical doctor. And one of the things that we're talking about was longevity. And so just to recap, Dr. Shealy, previous hour, is longevity increased to any particular extent by hygiene? Or does that play and I'm thinking about, the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, the 2000s. There's been, more bathing over time and better food, right?
We don't really know that. What we do know is adequate protein and adequate calories seem to be the basic thing, but other habits like exercise and the way you bathe, that is, soaking in a hot tub, water is far better than a shower as far as health is concerned. But we really don't. There are a lot of details we don't have adequate data on.
And class, so, you might think that taking a shower is a better way to go, because initially it seems like it would be, because, well, if you take a shower, you rinse off that grime and dirt and sweat and toxins and all that goes right down the drain. You don't soak in it. But according to what Dr. Shealy is telling us, it's not really better. The net effect is you're better off in the tub. Of course, that'd have to be a clean bathtub, right? With clean water. Dr. Shealy, well then what about municipal water, which has chlorine and fluoride in it? What about the body absorbing through, its largest organ, the skin? Chlorine and fluoride. What about that? Is that
living in a city in itself is far more unhealthy than living rurally. Mm-hmm. So that in itself tells you a lot. But I fortunately have lived most of my life on a farm, and fluoride is the worst of all toxins. It may be cumulative, better than even, or worse, if you will, than, even Roundup, because there's not as much Roundup in our air as there is fluoride in our water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the answer is we come back full circle to this over and over for 10 years class here at USA Prepares. Get out of Dodge, buy a farm, get a well, and make sure you have clean water. But, Dr. Shealy, when we bought our farm, it was predicated upon us liking the water. Now, this may sound very strange, class, but it's absolutely true. Before we bought our farm here in Missouri, we wanted to know what the water was like. Now, this farm it had a well, but it wasn't operational. There was no pressure tank. It wasn't hooked up to anything. It had a well, but it wasn't being used. And what you can do is you can call your state government, and you can say, I'm thinking about buying land in this particular location. And it's okay to tell them where. And that you'd like to know about the water in that location. And you can say, and we did, I made this call. And I talked to a state expert in Missouri. And I said, so where is the water the best to drink? Where is it the safest to drink? Where does it have the least amount of contaminants, etc.? And how deep are the wells? Because they know, they have a database of the wells. And they can say, well, for that location, within 1 mile radius, the depth of the well is going to be 238 feet or 206 feet or 115 feet. They know how far you're going to have to drill to get your well. They know that because they know the well specifications from all the other wells in the area. They know where the pollution is. They know where it's safe. And so what we did was we imposed on a couple neighbors to be, if you will. And we said, hi, we're thinking about, moving into this area, and we'd like to say hi, and we'd like to meet you, and we'd like you to meet us, and, see if we'd all fit in. And by the way, could we have a drink of water? Really, I'm very serious. And do you have any problems with the water, and are you happy with the water? Because that doesn't go away. If you've got bad water, that stays with the land. That's really hard to fix for the long run. Right, Dr. Shealy? I mean, you want good water right out of the well. Every day.
Yes.
Right. Because nobody says, you know what, I found a really great desert. It's awesome. There's nothing there. There's no water there. There's no trees. There's no grasses. Nothing. No, not even insects like it. That's a place we're going to move. Nobody does that. People want to be where there's good water, because without it, life is not sustainable. So those are my thoughts. Any quick comments on that, Dr. Shealy, or any long comments?
No. Keep the faith, baby.
Okay. So in the news, they've been talking about the presidential debate, and President Trump says that he's willing to take a drug test. Now, he is offering to take a drug test because he believes his opponent, Joe Biden, is using drugs to enhance his performance. And we've talked about this in the past, and I know for a fact that a Myers cocktail improves my performance. I'm not saying it makes me smarter, but it makes me feel a lot younger, and I'm more ready to go and get him, whatever, up and at him, as my dad would say in the morning. Up and at him. I guess that's an army term, like get up because, the enemy's coming, that kind of thing. But get up and start the day. That's what up and at him meant in my world. Do you think that Joe Biden could show an improved performance with medical miracles like IV vitamin C or some other drugs to make him appear to be, more than he is for the short run?
First, second, and third, I do not consider intravenous vitamin C a drug.
Okay.
But it certainly could help him perform better. But I suspect if he's on a drug, it will be some of the and Alzheimer drugs, and that would show up in his urine or blood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And do you think, medically speaking, that there's any reason why, the police test us for drugs? I mean, if they pull people over, they want to test people for drugs. Is there any reason why the CEO of corporate United States of America shouldn't be drug tested before?
Oh, Vince, I love you. You really get down to the nitty-gritty.
Well, they do it to us, and it's what's fair is fair. So
but
we got two guys on the
reason why it shouldn't be done. Right.
Okay. So there you have it, and I think it should be done. I'd like to know if the CEO to be, or the CEO that is using performance enhancing drugs or drugs of any kind, because I don't want the CEO running our country making decisions without a clear head. I really don't want that to happen. Dr. Shealy, there's a story about licorice, and I have to tell you that licorice is something that I enjoy the flavor of. When I was a very young person in elementary school, we had a class trip, and in the candy jars you could buy Heidi Juicy Fruits by the little tiny cup, and you'd pay per cup, and they put it in a little brown bag. And this was at a state park. They would sell this. But one of the thing that I bought in the candy gift shop, if you will, was a stick of licorice root. And this thing was it looked like a twig. And it tasted like licorice. And I really enjoy that, the taste of licorice. However, there's an article in the media that says, headline, Daily Mail, killed by licorice. Construction worker 54 died after eating a bag and a half of the black candy every day for weeks, causing his heart to stop. The Massachusetts man died, age 54, after eating a bag and a half of licorice every day for several weeks. Even a small amount of licorice you can eat can increase your blood pressure, a cardiologist who described the case warned. The problem is caused by glycyrrhic, I can't even pronounce it, glycyrrhizic acid found in black licorice and other foods. So I don't know what a bag and a half is. I don't know if that's one of these little, what used to be a 5-cent bag size of candy, which is probably $1 now, or whether it's, one of those big 1 or 2 pounders. I don't know how big a bag is, but this guy liked it. And he ate it every day, and he died of a heart attack as a result. Have you experienced, seen, or heard of anything like this, Dr. Shealy?
Well, I have not, but, again, that sounds to me a bag and a half, even if it's only an 8-ounce bag, that's a lot of sugar, probably.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's almost like it's engineered to make it so that you can't just eat just one, like Lay's potato chips with MSG in them, so that you can't just eat just one. You eat one, you go, I gotta have more. And then you have more, you go, I gotta have more. And you just can't stop. So it seems to me that, a bag, just as you said, a bag is a lot of sugar. And they say that this licorice, it's not just in licorice. the black licorice. It's in jelly beans, it's in licorice tea, and it's other products that are made with it because of the taste. And one of those kinds of things is anisette. Anisette is a liqueur. It's a very sweet after-dinner drink. The Italians seem to like it, or at least they did back in the 60s. But it tastes great. There's no question about it. It has that licorice taste. But red licorice is not licorice. That's something else that they use the name, but it's not red licorice. That's like a cherry or strawberry flavored something with, the same extrusion, but it's not licorice. So just want to draw the distinction there. Okay. So is the answer, Dr. Shealy, that, it says that it drives your potassium levels too low. That's what it says it does, this particular acid. So what happens when your potassium level goes low, real low?
Well, potassium is critical for your heart and the nervous system. So the two most important organs in the body.
Yeah. Okay.
Damaged.
Okay. So I guess the main point is everything in moderation, and you really don't have to eat sugar, right?
Right.
Okay. When we were building our house, Dr. Shealy, I was looking for a ceiling fan or a fan for the bathroom. Okay. And I thought we ought to have a ventilation fan. And I found one at Lowe's, and it was in their clearance section. They couldn't wait to get rid of it. It had a squirrel cage type fan, which pulls a lot of air out. And it's it's more quiet. But this thing had a feature that would let you have two light bulbs facing down. But they were floodlight style light bulbs. And they were designed to use infrared light bulbs. So our bathroom has a ceiling fan combination light fixture that is a heat lamp with two heat lamps. I'd like to talk about pluses and minuses. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us, and I mentioned that in our bathroom I installed, when we were building the house, a ceiling fixture. It has a fan and to remove moisture, from the shower, that kind of thing, bath. And it also has two infrared light bulb sockets, and they point down. So you could put in 125 or a 250 watt infrared light fixture. Infrared does not light up the room as an incandescent bulb does. An infrared bulb, about 90% of the energy that the bulb consumes goes to heat. Now, pointing straight down is great because it heats the floor. We have a tiled floor in the bathroom. And it's kind of chilly in the winter. Whereas, if you turn on this infrared light, it kind of gently warms up that floor. It's not like having a heated floor, but it's better than not having any, warmth at all. So my question for Dr. Shealy is, when you get out of the shower and you're standing under this infrared light, is it beneficial at all in terms of health, or is it non-beneficial or neutral?
I suspect that unless you're standing there an awful long time, it's neutral, but I don't know. I don't think the heat would be adequate to warm your body. It keeps you from being chilled, but I don't think it would increase the temperature of your body at all. I don't think it would cause you to sweat.
Okay. Okay. And I know that in the 1950s, there were people who had back pain, and there wasn't the prevalence of back surgery. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying people didn't have their backs operated on because, they hurt their back, or they, just had a lot of wear and tear on their back. So what they would do is they would lie down, face down on their stomach under a heat lamp of, maybe, 2 feet away or maybe more. And they would use a heat lamp to relieve some pain. Have you heard of that being done, Dr. Shealy?
Oh, yeah. And there is benefit from that kind of local application, yes.
Okay. Do we know why that works? Is it the improving circulation? Is it?
Yes.
What could it? Okay. All right.
Part of
now, can that be done? I'm sorry?
It's part of immune enhancement, yes, immune system.
Okay. Could that be done with the PEMF device? Your device.
It increases circulation as well, and has many more benefits actually than infrared heat, but still both good.
Okay. Have you done so many different studies you could do with that device, right? Have you put that on your list to see if it will alleviate back pain?
No question. It's excellent for local pain.
Okay. All right. Next on the list, I was talking with Sonny Skidmore. Sonny Skidmore is the owner of KLID AM 1340 radio in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. She's going to be on with us. I think she's going to be checking in with us sometime tomorrow. And she was in an automobile accident in her truck, and it resulted in her legs being amputated, both of them. So she's in great spirits, and she has learned how to use her artificial limbs. And she is just, you would think that she wouldn't be positive about this whole thing. And she's great. And, I asked her if she would come on the air with me and talk about her experiences with the coronavirus at the nursing home where she still is. And it's a very difficult situation because she is there where she's getting some skilled care, helping her walk and things like that. And she's 90 years old, 90. So for someone her age to be able to do this well is quite remarkable in itself. Wouldn't you agree, Dr. Shealy? Right.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And she's been on the air with you in the past, right after her legs were amputated, and she spent some time with us. Well, she's going to be on, I hope, tomorrow, and for some amount of time as a call-in. And the question is there anything else she should do? She got, I got the vitamins that you recommended, the supplements, Dr. Shealy's supplements, and we got them to her. Is there anything else that she should do? Please tell us when we come back, Dr. Shealy. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us. Dr. Shealy, we were talking about longevity today, and we're also listening to the top of the hour, bottom of the hour news, Vicodin, opioid addiction. Do we know what causes the addiction? Why the body seems to want more of it?
Well, there's a natural thing called anandamide, which is considered to be bliss. And it turns out that some people don't produce enough to start with. So I think it's a question of some kind of disarray or dysfunction in the natural hormones like dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and anandamide. So it's individual, and it's a question of the degree of anxiety or depression versus normalcy.
Mm-hmm. And once a person becomes addicted to opioids, for example, when you help them get off their addiction through the use of your pulse electromagnetic frequency device, what happens after they get off? Do they want to get back on, or has their body overcome that dependency or that addiction?
Well, in the average detox center for opioid addiction, they have a success rate of only 17%. We have a 100% success rate using gamma PIMP. Mm-hmm. But apparently, if you don't somehow recharge the brain with adequate gamma, it doesn't last.
Okay, so you have to keep using it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we don't know about. I'm talking about in the average detox center, they don't restore gamma. That's the reason it fails.
Okay, and your gamma PIMF and class PEMF, and Dr. Shealy's pronouncing PIMF, PEMF, pulse electromagnetic frequency gamma device, that Dr. Shealy has engineered, along with USA Preparedness instructor Lou Cassidy. This device, does it restore gamma?
apparently.
Mm-hmm.
It restores gamma. After you've used it for a while, it seems to allow you to continue producing gamma more easily, yes.
Okay. And can you explain for our class how the person uses this device that was part of your clinical trials, these drug-addicted patients
we
of
put
yours?
it on the top of the head, on top of a baseball cap. And it is 100% safe. The only contraindication would be an implanted pacemaker or something like that. But you need to wear it a minimum of an hour or two a day. And it can change. Well, it's the single greatest thing for overcoming anxiety.
Okay. And when you say anxiety, you're talking about restlessness, anxiousness,
Exactly.
irritability, all those things combined?
Exactly.
Okay. I was reading a study. Oh, by the way, class, if you're interested, you can go to normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com, or you can call his office, 417-351-5221, 417-351-5221. Dr. Shealy, I was reading a story about a burnout, and I remember, when I had a job, every once in a while, somebody would say, boy, he's burned out, or he looks burned out. But, the person would come back from the weekend just fine. Okay. So just tired, exhausted. And I think they used the word burned out to mean, just put in too many hours this week, exhausted from, the sheer stress and deadlines, etc. of the job. Well, now it seems that there was a survey of people, and now the average worker experiences career burnout by the age of 32. And I got to tell you, at 32, I was just getting started.
I agree. That should be the part of the peak of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, by the age of 37, I was, coming into my, best developments, meaning, I made the most significant engineering type accomplishments of my life around 37. And, but, I wasn't even, I don't think I've ever been burned out. It's not something that, I've got my head down and I, shuffle over to Mrs. Finelli and say, yeah, I'm burned out. It's never happened. Never happened. And I'm 68, and I'm not looking forward to it happening.
Attitude.
Yeah. So I think, from what I can tell, there is a general weakness in younger people. I don't think they have the stick-to-itiveness, the drive, the perseverance that we saw of the greatest generation, what Tom Brokaw called the greatest generation. I'm talking about the World War II soldiers. I don't think that we have that today. I think we have more wimps than we have people who would just, do what had to be done because it had to be done, whatever it was, whether it be on the farm or the job or the factory or at home, whatever it was, they did what they had to do and they didn't whine about it. Now I think we have more whiners, and I kind of understand why the average worker now says he or she's burned out by 32, because they just don't know. They just don't have the physiology and the mental attitude to persevere. I think they just don't have it. Are you seeing that as well, Dr. Shealy, that young people just are not overall as strong in every respect as we were decades ago?
Absolutely. No question about it.
Do we know what it is? What the cause is?
It looks as if somehow millennials have lost conscientiousness.
I think you're right. I was working on a truck over the weekend, with our son. And we put a water pump in it. It's a 2001 Chevrolet pickup truck. And we worked long and hard hours on it, and up and down on the lift, and we put a water pump in it. We put a front wheel hub on it. We replaced the rubber boots that are on the tie rod ends. We replaced the starter. And of course we had to diagnose all these things. And so it took hours and hours and hours. It took all day on Sunday to do these things. And we weren't done. And by the end of Sunday, we stopped. And we didn't test drive it. There was no, we didn't flush out the radiator after putting the water pump in. That part was left undone. And during the broadcast, I looked out, and there's that truck, and our son, put the radiator flush in it. He just picked it up, and I didn't say, "Hey, here's what we got to do." He just did it. Now he's in his 20s, and he's in late 20s, and frankly, I think I would have been disappointed if he just didn't pick up the mantle and continue on by himself. He didn't say, "Dad, should I do this, and this, and this? Or shouldn't I?" Or wait for me to say, "Hey, get back on the job." He just did it. Now, that is something that is really, really rare. And when I go out with our son, like if we go to do something, people who meet him, they say the same thing, Dr. Shealy. They look at our son, like let's say, he and I are working on, someone has a problem with a car, or he's picking up a car and he's putting it on a trailer. They'll look at him and they'll say, "I wish my son was like that." And what they're saying is, he's able to start by himself. I don't have to tell him step by step what to do. He just does it. That's the way our family is. And if it were our other son, he'd be doing the same thing. If it were Mrs. Finelli, she or I'd be doing the same thing. It's just the way we are, the way we operate. But it seems like it's rare. How did we lose that, Dr. Shealy? Do you think it's nurture? Do you think it's nature? Do you think it's the school system? Or is it everything?
I think it's everything. I honestly believe that television in itself is one of the most stupid, irreverent, and useless and damaging things that ever was invented. Watching the boob tube makes you a boob. Mm-hmm. That's part of it.
We got an invitation when our son was in high school. We got an invitation. Mrs. Finelli and I got an invitation by the school system to attend a very, very small, very private kind of a luncheon. And the luncheon was prepared by the students who were learning chef's prep. They were going to be working in restaurants, so they were learning how to cook. And the reason for this luncheon is there were a few students that are selected because teachers had observed these students doing something that was out of the ordinary. They did something that caught the teacher's eye. And it wasn't like there was a contest. So y'all be on the lookout for any students who do something nice. It wasn't like that. It was just kind of a unsaid, unwritten thing where if a teacher saw a student do something, they thought that should be recognized. I'm talking about an outstanding thing. And what happened was there was a student who had a water pump. Students, junior and senior years, I guess, were allowed to drive to school if they had, the appropriate permits from the state. And so there's one student had a young girl had a truck, family truck, I guess, and it had a water pump that failed. It was leaking, antifreeze in the parking lot. And so our son and another boy said, "I'll tell you what, the auto store's down the road. We can pick up a water pump. We can replace it right here in the parking lot. We'll do it." And so they spent a couple hours and they replaced the water pump in the parking lot so that this other fellow student, didn't have to have the vehicle towed someplace. And that's what they did. They had the tools. Our son had all the tools in his truck, and they replaced the water pump. And one of the teachers saw that and thought that was something that should be noted. And then they saw him do something else, and then something else. And so there was a series of things that he did that were out of the ordinary. And they thought it was worth recognize him. So we got invited to this luncheon where there were a few students who had done not necessarily the same thing, but kind acts of being nice to someone else. That was not necessary, not required. Just being a nice person. And that we need more of that. We need more people who are willing to help others who are in need without the expectation of a reward, without the expectation of an attaboy, without any expectation whatsoever. Just being selfless rather than selfish. I'd love to hear your comments when we come back, Dr. Shealy. NormShealy.com, NormShealy.com. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us. NormShealy.com, NormShealy.com. Dr. Shealy, have you seen a change, either an improvement or the absence of people being kind to each other in your circles? Has there been a change over the last couple of decades?
Well, I think yes. I think, again, I blame it upon television largely, but I don't know. Remember, in my opinion, there's only one purpose in life: to help other people. Mm-hmm. And to me, the word love is the desire to do good to or help other people. Mm-hmm. So that's the only purpose in life. No matter what you do, if it's helping other people, it's just as good as anybody else.
Okay. Next question I have for you is about iodine. And when I was talking with Sunny Skidmore, and that's Sunny is spelled Sunny. When we were talking, she mentioned iodine. She said, I think I remember hearing a test for iodine. You put it on your skin, and if it disappears, that means that you're short of iodine or the opposite. And she wasn't sure which it was. Have you heard of something like that, or is that just,
Well, iodine is partly in every cell, and it helps produce energy. Now, its primary purpose, of course, or one we know most about, is thyroid function, but it actually produces energy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've followed your recommendation with 7 drops based on the concentration, and what a world of difference it made. No question about it. I've been on it every day since last week that you told me, and it's absolutely working fabulously well. And so my next question was about iodine. Are all iodines the same? For example, I'm looking at Tractor Supply on the internet, and it says they have something called Durvet, Durvet. I guess that's a combination of the word durable and veterinarian. Durvet Triodine, Triodine-7. It's $20 for a bottle of it. Looks like it's about 8 ounces or so. And it says here it's a triple source iodine tincture. It's they say it's more stable than 7% iodine. Let's see. It is specifically formulated as a water or feed additive. Now, this would be for animals. Now, is that the same kind of iodine that we should put on our skin, people, or is it different? Are there differences in iodine?
Oh, there's all kinds. There's plain iodine, and there's, iodine can be combined with other things. But basically, you need a certain amount of iodine, and the minimum seems to be about 1.5 milligrams a day of the iodine itself. There's potassium iodide and other forms of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so do we have to be careful as to what iodine we put on our skin?
Well, of course.
How would we know?
Tincture of iodine seems to be safe for most people.
Okay. And is it absorbed well enough through the skin to be used as a supplement, or, taking a Q-tip and dipping it in this like Triodine 7 veterinarian type iodine? Is that safe to put on our skin, or is that just for animals?
I'd be careful of using veterinary. I don't know how strong it is, but the important thing is you can actually find out whether you're iodine deficiency by painting yourself a little 1-inch area on your skin, and if it's absorbed in less than 24 hours and disappears without washing off, you're deficient in iodine.
Okay, that's what Sunny Skidmore was saying. She was saying that you just paint, a small amount on your skin. If it disappears, you are deficient. So if it doesn't disappear, then you're okay?
Exactly.
All right. So your body is saying, I need this. Now, is all iodine brown in color, or are there different colors? I've only seen brown.
I haven't seen anything but brown.
Okay. So literally a postage stamp size. So we're talking roughly an inch by an inch, roughly speaking. Q-tip, and just rub it on your skin. Any particular place better than another, Dr. Shealy?
Well, probably the belly.
On the belly. Okay. And by tomorrow, 24 hours later, what would you see? Would you see a trace of it, or would it be completely gone?
Well, if it's mostly gone, I would say. It's fair trace left, you're deficient.
Okay. And if that is the case, should you be doing that day after day after day as a supplement?
Well, you could. I prefer to take iodoral.
Iodoral. Okay. And that's pre-sized for a specific dose, the daily dose, correct?
That actually is once a week is adequate.
Once a week for
12.5 milligrams total.
Okay, so you wanted, I believe you said 1.5 milligrams per day.
That's right.
Okay. Great. Dr. Shealy, thanks so much for being with us and sharing your wealth of knowledge. See you next week.
Always fun.
Absolutely. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.